Good evening, everyone. It is it is November 12th, 2024, and the time is 6:10 p.m., 6:09 p.m. I now call this meeting of the Urban Design Commission to order. Pursuant of Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023, this meeting of the Urban Design Commission is conducted via remote participation. We will make recordings available upon request as soon as possible after the meeting. My name is Estela Reganet, proxy co-chair for tonight's meeting alongside Luisa Oliveira, and we will start with a roll call of the commission members present. Andrew Arbaugh.
Here.
Deborah Fennick. Absent. Sherry Ruane. Absent. Tim Talon.
Present.
Frank Valdez.
Present.
And alternate Tim Hood. Absent. So quorum is met, and we will continue the agenda to the next schedule, or quorum is met. We will continue to the next agenda item, which is general business. And our first order of business is the approval of last month's meeting minutes. If anyone has any comments or things noted that need correction, or does anyone?
I have no comments.
All right. With no comments, is there a motion to approve last month's meeting minutes of the UDC?
So motioned.
Motion to approve by Andrew Arbaugh is
Second.
Great. Second from Frank Valdez. So the motion, yeah. So so it's approved, right? Great.
Typically, we'll do a roll call vote.
Okay, let's do a roll call vote. Andrew Arbaugh.
Yes.
Tim Talon.
Yes.
And Frank Valdez. Yes, so the motion passes and the minutes are approved. So next is the review of 375 Somerville Ave. So no motion, is that correct? No motion is required for this. But the rules of policy and procedures state that the UDC needs to review the written recommendation once completed by the case planner. If there are no concerns.
Excuse me, if I may. I think you might be looking at an old script. Let me.
No.
Yeah. Are you on Teams right now?
Yes.
Okay. I shot you a Teams message that has the updated cheat sheet in it.
Got it. Let's see. Okay. So we will be, let me download this really quick.
Yes, while we're waiting, if we could we promote Alex Varellis and Sylvia Ilya Sheldal for this item? Thank you.
Okay. Just Alex and Sylvia, Adam?
Yeah, I don't know who that other person is.
Okay.
So sorry about that. Still no motion is required, but we will be reviewing 675 Somerville Ave 3. And so this is an MR3 mixed use building, and we will vote on massing and facade design guidelines and any additional design guidance. And with that, I will let the developer team take it away in presenting.
Thank you so much. Adam Dash, I'm the attorney for 675 Somerville LLC. With us is Alex Varellis from the LLC and Paxton Sheldal and Sylvia Ilya Sheldal, who are the architects from BOS Urban Architecture. Just real quick, we're here tonight on a proposed redevelopment at this property. It is both 675 Somerville Ave and also known as 3 Craigie Street. Actually, the city's assessor's database actually only calls it 3 Craigie Street, even though it faces Somerville Ave, whatever. This is a gas station and auto shop, and it is at the corner, as I said, of Craigie and Somerville Ave. It's been in the Varellis family for generations. The proposal is to demolish those existing structures and build a new 3-story, 14-unit rental building with commercial space on the first floor. Across the street, as you may know, is a car wash and the train tracks. The left of the property across Craigie is a 3-story mixed-use structure with ground story commercial and to the right is a 3-story multifamily dwelling. And there's a 2.5 story residential dwelling behind it, which is the ground rises up along Craigie, so it's a little higher. So the proposed structure is the same number of stories as the existing structures on either side. It will be dimensionally compliant in the MR3, and we are proposing no car parking. With that, I'll turn it over to Sylvia and Paxton to show you the plans.
Thank you so much. I'm gonna share my screen. The sharing is not working yet.
You should be able to share now.
Okay. So also while we're here, I think Kate Kennan from Offshoots is also going to be presenting at the end of this slideshow. And I think she might be needing to join as a panelist as well.
All right, she should be promoted to a panelist now.
Excellent. And just double checking that you see a full screen and no notes.
Yes.
Perfect. Let me just match this. Great. So right on to this. This is a corner view of the current use. I'm not going to repeat the same things Adam just said, but you know, this is the patrol side right now. We like Adam said, being in Alex families for 4 decades. He keeps it, you know, in the families for future generations. So it's local owner, develop all electrical building, general building. It's within the MR3. This development includes 14 rental units that will contribute to Somerville's housing stock, has 7 2-bedroom units, 5 1-bedroom units, 2 studios. 2 of these, one bedroom, one studio, will be affordable housing, designated affordable housing. And of course, we're within the half-mile transit area map, and we have no parking by right. A little bit of the sustainability narrative. Again, no parking, no added traffic, no fossil fuels on site. We will comply with Green Score requirements. The project will remove the current motor vehicle use. We're promoting a building that has natural cross ventilation and self-shading. We will pursue her certification. This project is under 12,000 square feet of residential. So I think we're pursuing the path that is her certification to commit to the standards of the Specialized Energy Code. And we will also follow along the Somerville Pollinator Action Plan with pollinator safe planting in our landscape proposals. A little bit of the site, we are very close to Porter. We have line 83 and 87 serving the bus lines that serve the site. And just looking around the site, this is the lot we're abutting 669 Somerville Ave that has a prescripted easement. So we have to accommodate this fire escape. The back of the site is being shown right now. This is abutting 1 Craigie Street, just so we have visuals on that. And just quickly, this slide shows just immediate context, just for you, scale and materiality of our neighbors. There's a lot of popped color and brick, the car wash across the street. Okay, so back to this, the zoning requirements are met. This is a survey that shows the existing structure that we're proposing to demolish. And we are again reiterating that we're keeping that fire escape and egress for maintaining that and respecting that. Looking at the setback, because it's a corner lot, we have some strange, you know, a slightly different setback. We have 3 side setbacks and 1 rear. The rear one is 20 feet because it's abutting NR, and then we have a 10 side setback abutting NR. Here we have MR3 abutter, so it's a 0 setback, but we're again, because of the fire escape, we're keeping that. There's going to be a setback there. And then we are respecting the 12 feet setback from the curb, which means there's 2 front setbacks are 2 feet, sorry, the front setbacks from the lot line. So here are sort of like nutritional facts of what we're proposing. We're proposing walk-up housing with a mix of duplexes and flats. There's a commercial space on Somerville Ave. Again, cross ventilation is important to us. No elevator on this, just 2 egress stairs. And we have an idea of creating a unit type that's sort of repeatable. Our goals for this development is that is a low maintenance and durable development. So just to go over numbers, we have a GSF of 14,628, 2,744 gross square feet of commercial, 9,810 net square feet of residential. This yields about 14 units, 83% efficiency. And again, I'm not going to repeat, but we have 5 one-bedrooms, 7 two-bedrooms, 2 studios, 2 ADUs, and then a remainder of point A in terms of affordable. Moving on to these slides, we're just going to quickly go through specific topics and also to get you acquainted with the planning, right? We have a massing that is broken down into 2 parts, joined by a common terrace. In the ground here, we have 2 main access points, a residential access on Craigie and a service access on Somerville Ave. It's also for trash and fire and egress. We have 2 trash zones. One, there's like in the back of the commercial zone, which will be, both of them are going to be covered and screened. There's this other little one here. Sorry, this was that. You can't see my mouse. I'm like pointing around and you can't see my mouse. That's fine. On the upper part, this is sort of like a photograph of the type of container for the totes that we're thinking of. It's called the city bin, which has no seams and it's good for pest controls and things like that. We have obviously the utility. That's the most important one here is the transformer and the location of that transformer. So we have a preliminary load letter from our engineers. We're in conversations with Eversource regarding the loads and regarding the specifications of the transformer. Our engineer outlined that we need a 50 kVA transformer, and this is the location in the red dot up there in the northwest. The unit will be open air and will be screened. And that's what the proposed location that we have so far. There's also going to be on the public realm, there's going to be a tree that we're proposing, which is right here on the south side of the site plan. Moving on to curb cut changes, we have 3 curb cuts and we're proposing to fill them and basically bring it back so the city can continue providing great infrastructure for bicycle and pedestrians. We have we're kind of studying a little bit visibility, trying not to make that complicated. We think it's good. We have, in terms of bicycle parking, we're proposing 14 long-term bicycle parking spots indoors and 4 short-term bicycle parking outside under a covered canopy in the back. Open common space, we have, surrounding the entire development, there's open outdoor amenities, and there are 3 dedicated private outdoor amenities for the units on the ground floor, which are fenced. You go up the 2 stairs and you end up in this terrace, and this terrace is the one that distributes you to all your front doors. Everyone has their own front door. Like I said, these are duplexes and flats. The flats are in strong orange color and they're stacked. So from here, you go to your duplexes or your flats. And then if you notice here, adjacent to the door to the flats, you go up to the 3rd level, continuing with the duplex and then onto the last 2 flats. So moving forward with the facade and there's 1 massing and 3 facade options. We have basically articulated 3 ideas from a very simple flat one to a more articulated pleated one. We're using brick for all 3 of them, but we have different color palettes. The brick does 3 really important things for us. Brick is a non-directional material that reinforces our massing. It gives a cohesive reading to the whole building. It's also obviously durable and has low maintenance. On the right, we have a preferred option, which is the pleated one. So here's a corner view that shows the building and shows that brick is again unifying the massing, but we have two different readings, one on the primary front and one on the secondary front. We have the opportunity to use color for accents and to signal a difference between the exterior and the interior facades. We want that commercial space to have a strong presence on the corner, and also it wraps through at Craigie Street, and it sets up the residential entry. We're gonna see now the version with the gray brick color and the version that is pleated. The primary material in option 1 is face brick, a rose blend. The secondary and accent materials are fiber cement boards in 2 colors, with and without a linear pattern. The storefront color and the window frames will match. And this color is very dear to us, is the Petrola green. It has like a history on the side. We want to limit the color palette to 3 materials. So the brick, becomes a unifier and the color becomes a disruptor or the activator in a way. And option 2, we have the light gray with the serrated balcony articulation. So again, the difference a little bit in the massing there is subtle in this view. And then our primary material and our preferred option, again, is this face brick. It's a red blend with the pleated balconies. So we're interested in the strong reading of the bay that continues to the ground with the column grid and with the thickening of the mullion. So this option shows, this is the flat option, right? Option 1 shows that there's recessed glazing that produces self-shading. There will be the railing and the low wall accents to show texture and break up a little bit the brick. There's a subtle change here in the shadow line with the serrated balconies. It's doing a little bit what the Cambria Hotel is doing, right? It's sort of like serrated angle. And in the preferred option, we're playing with the detail of the brick a little bit more and the movement of the ins and the outs of the bay that continue more strongly now to the ground, so that there's no, that line continues and addresses the 28-foot bay. And this, we think this one's the one that has the most potential. Other views looking towards Porter, just to sort of see the changes. Now, let's shift a little bit to the residential entry. Here, the grid is shifting, so it creates naturally a recessed entry on Craigie. The residential scale is accentuated also by the grade change going up. So we're playing with switching to a texture panel at the entry. If you see it on the right here, you see like there's some vertical pattern on the same color, but it changes the texture. So flipping through option 2 with the grays, a little bit more contrast. You can now see a little bit better the serrated balconies. And option 3, I prefer option, which has a slightly different treatment on the gap between the 2 parts of the building, where we can put signage. And there's also there's this planter / bench, which kind of like starts as a curve and grows into a bench as you approach Somerville Ave. And we thought that would be a great way to sort of like, integrate a little bit of social space outside of the residential entry. So this is the Craigie Street descending towards Somerville Ave. Again, we're using here the parapet lines to make the form a little bit more dynamic, to break the massing. We enjoy the color playfulness with the balconies against the brick. Here's a version with the libraries, a little bit more contrast. And then here in the preferred option, we opted actually for a more tone on tone, allowing the window frames to be the subtle color pop. Our strategy for awning and signage on the primary facade is this, where the awning is a thin metal extrusion as if you were extruding the top mullion out, and it's supported by the balconies above. And we think the location of the signage to the front of that awning makes it a little bit more visible. You can see the detail here also of the brick corbelling that adds texture and to the facade. Here, the ins and the outs of the pleated facade provide privacy between neighbors, provides structural continuity, and provides shading. That's why we like it. And again, here's a diagram to check on the fenestration percentages, mostly on the north and south, we're complying. So now I'm going to pass this to Kate Kennan from Offshoots.
Thanks, Sylvia. Can everyone hear me okay? Great. So Sylvia, yeah, perfect. So as Sylvia already mentioned, the kind of the ground floor strategy here is a series of smaller unit terraces that come off on the back side that are directly accessed from the units. These are with pervious pavers. The idea is the LSP has actually informed us that the site is able to accept stormwater, even though with its previous use as a gas station, it is clean per the standards. So we're showing pervious pavers for the patio and for the shared terrace that's often to the right, with the idea that there's square tables and bistro lights to use as a shared community space. And then as Sylvia already described, the kind of the character of this, that's okay. The character of this is basically the shared unit terraces in the back would have pea stone paving around and some small thin native trees that can create a bit of a grove in the back of the site. And then on the next level up on the terrace, where you come into the circulation to get into the individual units, the areas shown in tan where you enter each unit we're thinking might be a deck or some sort of wood to create a warm entry with a small cafe table outside of each with staggered planters that could then create some green spaces on that level. In addition, and that's sort of the character image of that there are these warm entries with punctuated planters between them. And the idea is on the roof plan, we haven't shown a green roof strategy yet. We're aware of Somerville's ordinance and would love to reach out to this group about if it is required for this building. We think that it is. And if it is, we are really excited about starting to provide that for additional insulation and pollinator and habitat benefit. For the planting strategy, we always take a look at the winter prevailing winds and summer prevailing winds because we think about the automobile uses off of Somerville Ave and bus traffic and train traffic and where the particulate matter is coming from, and also where the groundwater flow is coming from the upper right-hand corner. So, and then sun is obviously coming from east along the south to the other side. So when thinking about that with our planting strategy, the next slide is shows how we've been considering. Offshoots has been doing a lot of work on the Somerville Pollinator Action Plan, and so we wanted to create a pollinator-informed design as part of this this project, especially with it being an environmental justice neighborhood. Next slide. And so we have the trees that are along the back and the unit terraces having phytoremediation typology, so plants that can actually clean up groundwater contamination. Not that we expect any, but if there was any sort of residual petroleum, we're kind of creating a phyto buffer on the back side. And then our one street tree in the front is targeted for air particulate matter removal with stickier, waxier leaves of the American sycamore. And then here, these are just the actual planting proposed. So in the back, again, a few big shade trees with a basswood and a couple quaking aspens, and then some hybrid poplar, which we would coppice and actually cut down every handful of years as they start to fill in that site. And then there's also a back site wall that would stay as well, that we're talking about adding Virginia creeper to the existing wall to create sort of a green screen on the back with a native plant. And on the next slide is the pollinator planting. So straight from the Pollinator Action Plan, we took the magenta magnet concept and thinking about this for the green planters that are on the site that'll receive a good amount of sun on that ground floor, taking that concept and just doing seasonal annuals and pollinator forward planting design in the front underneath the overhang that would be replanted each year. And then the next slide is lastly the planters to the terrace, again, right out of the Somerville Pollinator Action Plan, taking the shady pollinator plantings and putting those in the containers to have a place for as part of the corridor. Yeah, so, and then lastly, the green score. So for this particular design, even without the green roof, we've achieved the green score, look with some pervious pavements, and other things as well. And I could walk through this more specifically if people have questions. But we're able to achieve that with the amount of green space shown here. Great.
That's it.
Thank you.
Mhm.
And shall we open the floor for discussion? Is that right?
We usually start with just like clarifying questions as step one.
Great. Are there any
yeah,
clarifying questions?
I had one. You guys probably covered this, but it's how do you get is there an accessible entry or accessible way to that second floor?
No.
No.
All 3 ADA units on the ground floor is what's required. Because it's not an elevator building, we're not required to bring ADA access to the second floor.
Okay. So the ground floor units are accessible, but anyone who wants to go above, not accessible.
That's right.
Okay.
Any other clarifying questions from the committee?
Yeah, one question just about the transformer and its location. I think there might be 2 different ways that this is represented. Yeah. So here it looks like it's the transformer itself is in a proud of the face of the building. It's in the space of the sidewalk. And I think some of the renderings showed it perhaps within an enclosure that is set back from the face of the building.
I think it's shown 10 feet from the curb line, which was the Eversource standard. It may need to be 12 to, I guess, to clarify that question. I'm not sure if I put it in the right spot, to be honest with you, Tim.
Okay.
It should be 10 or 12. 10 is the minimum from Eversource. We put it as close to the street as what Eversource wanted, but 12 is the actual setback from the curb. So I didn't know if this was a building element or if it has to be 10 from Eversource. So it could be either one, but that we showed it 10, which is why you see it slightly closer.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you showing it and including it on the plans so we could discuss it.
It really must go there, to be honest with everybody here. Like, I have no other place that we would want to put it because Somerville Ave is almost unacceptable in many ways. Or at least we would destroy a lot. If we put it under the building anywhere, we have to lift the building an extra 2-3 feet just to provide the clearance, which is kind of crazy.
But we've seen
yeah, I
crazier, we've seen crazier things, so I think that the point would be that we're gonna hold that what you are saying it is,
Yep.
and if it happens to move at any point, I would say that it would be a condition for the Urban Design Commission to review any move of the transformer to any other direction that is not there,
Yep.
because we've seen it.
Oh yeah, me too. I've seen it in
Okay.
Union Square in a couple of places.
Yep. Yes, we have as well. I guess I'd suggest, and I think there are several other situations where the transformer has been located behind the 12-foot setback. I'd suggest that in this case it be set behind that. So it's not within the space of the sidewalk, should that 12-foot with the sidewalk ever continue past
Yep.
this.
Our engineer did request a pole, because the 50 kV is actually not a very big transformer for this building. He did request a pole mounted transformer, which he said probably would not happen, but that's our first request to Eversource. This
Well-
is pad mounted transformer in anticipation of not getting the pole mounted.
Yes, but considering the fact that your commercial space, I have to assume that is not gonna be using gas.
That's
Or
right.
will it be, right, so it's not using gas, so it could potentially be a restaurant, and it could potentially require electricity, and that potentially could trigger it up a little bit more. We've seen it happen as well, so just mindful
Yeah.
of those ups.
Appreciate that. Thanks, Frank.
I had another question, and I think this is, this is kind of getting into the weeds a little. But I think you've included a lot in here, which is great. I think there's some very interesting things to talk about related to the design. I'm wondering if you could talk about two kind of details. One, how you see the brick turning the corner at these balconies. It looks like in all the options, you have the brick returning into the depth of the balcony, which is nice, very nice. But these are very thin piers.
Tim, I have a hard time hearing you. Can you please
Oh,
speak up a little bit? Sorry.
okay. I'm wondering if you can talk about how so it looks like, yeah, good view. We're seeing the brick returning from the piers into the depth of the balcony. But these are very thin piers. It looks like they're just 2 bricks wide. Can you talk about that detail a little?
Yeah.
How that would be accomplished? Are these full depth bricks? Are they thin bricks?
They're face brick right now, and the walls are 14 inches total. So we could achieve, you know, basically 2 face brick and some structure in between the 2. In that distance. Now, I don't think this will be a cavity wall for that particular location and that particular detail. I think it would just be a face brick without cavity, because we don't have insulation and the need for cavity in that particular location. But we could achieve it in 14 inches, which is what this image is showing. This one is a little bit thicker than this one, to be fair. Like, these 2 are at 2 different levels of development in terms of the visual thinness that you're perceiving here is correct. It's too thin. And this one is visually, the preferred one is visually thicker.
A little bit more further along.
I could go to a more closer image.
Is this, you could stay there for a second, actually, because I have a question on this. Oh, sorry.
I'm going back.
Yeah.
Think. Oh my gosh, sorry, it's like delayed.
It's all right. Is it wood construction? Can you tell me about?
Right now, it's wood construction. That's the anticipation. Yes.
So
It
that's
may be
the-
metal studs and it may be wood, but it's light wood, light frame construction.
So the only thing that I was looking at and wondering, when being wood construction, and just I appreciate the design, and I really appreciate the detailing that you have done. So I want to make sure that the intent that you are designing to comes across in the end. So making sure that those 2 things marry, right? So when I look at that window where the arrow is, looking at the balconies and looking at that window, I have to assume that that window is to the floor, and the thickness of the brick below that is really the construction of that floor component. Am I correct in my assumption in that?
That's correct.
Right. And
There's also a little bit of a error on this image. If you can see the floor through the window here, like something slipped here slightly. So it'd be a little bit thicker. You can see the white behind this window.
Right. Typically in wood construction, when you're separating that ground floor from the top floor, you would typically see a standard 18-inch wood truss, open truss. You could go down to a 16-inch, at times out of 14-inch wood truss. I just want to make sure that in the way that you're translating that in the facade makes sense, because you are showing something that is elegant, and I think I like it, but I think that in reality, I don't think that window is going to be coming to the floor, and I think that floor is going to end up being thicker, just because the structure separating your ground level to your second level is going to be a little bit different, because we are using wood construction, and therefore it's going to change a little bit of your, not massing, but really your scaling of those components and that. So I would be mindful of those components as they reflect on your facade.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. And I think the 14 inches is something we've kind of targeted as a let's say a dimension for both the vertical and horizontal reading of spandrel and also the vertical wall, mainly because that's the kind of size of the grid. That's the intent and the desire. It may require a different structural edge than if it's not wood. I don't know yet. We don't have an engineer, to be honest with you, yet. So it may require some different detail to achieve that. But I think we're going to try to hold that. At least that's the intent from a design point of view.
And I think that in the end, that's just going to impact really your reading of your brick at your balcony and reading of your brick right at the window component, whether it gets thicker or not. And that does impact, you know, the geometry of your facade.
Great. And are there any comments or preferences by the committee on the sort of flat facade versus the corbelled option that we're seeing here?
I'll jump in and do the landscape before we move to that, if that's okay. So thank you. We see a lot of just sort of parsley around the pig. Just honestly like a unusable landscape space that is there exclusively to hit the green score. And this is not that. This is actually meaningful open space that can be used by people who live in this building. The plant palette is lovely. No comments on that. No surprise on that either. So I definitely commend kind of everything that's going on with the landscape here. I had the same question about the transformer. It would be nice to understand just what that relationship is, including offsets. It looks very, very close to the terrace where it is. So I think other folks have already noted that as well. And then just to note, I don't love that it's not accessible, that so much of this building is not accessible to people with disabilities. I understand that that's within the code. It doesn't feel like it's in the sort of spirit of the inclusive community that we hope to be in and live in. But other than that, good job.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. And I do appreciate the comment, and I share your sentiment on accessibility. There's different types of accessibility, like walk-up MR3s are uniquely positioned to be walk-up housing, which is then uniquely positioned to be more affordable because you don't have to then buy elevators for, say, a smaller unit count. You know, we're actually exceeding the percentage even required by Massachusetts accessibility by 3. You know, we actually only really allowed to have 5%. So there are pluses and minuses, but I do think let's say the cost equation also should be considered when we could do a walk-up typology that could actually become more affordable, hopefully in the end for residents in Somerville.
Great. Any more comments on the landscape?
Maybe just one, as long as you're on that plan, the ground level. So the service access from Somerville Avenue, which has the fire escape coming down, you know, is there a gate or something that separates the occupant area from that service alley, or is it all just open?
There isn't right now. Right now, it's all just open.
We struggled with this idea of a gate with the access of the neighbor, which is, you know, kind of an unofficial easement as of right now. But we also kind of struggle with the idea of people being able to meander back there too. It'll be something we need to think hard about, whether we need to control access or not. Is there a concern on
It's not so much a concern, but my only worry would be if it looks too inviting, people will go back there and then end up in a space that
people will.
It's really a private space.
Yeah.
So how do you kind of, if it's not a gate, how do you signal that it really is a private space, not a cut through?
Yeah, I think part of the thing is there's the overhang and you're gonna go into the overhang space, and then behind that is more the landscape open space. So I think there is this threshold that you kind of move through in the back. But we'll think about that a little bit more.
So from Somerville Avenue, I can just walk through that alley where the existing fire escape is, no problem, right? And then can I just then make a left turn into the grade area where the stair is?
Yes.
I could, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Currently,
but-
yes.
But potentially you could put a gate between the blue retail and the existing building that has, you know, emergency,
Mhm.
you know, hardware that you can just push out in order for, to what Tim is saying, to avoid
Yeah.
this nook and cranny of just gathering. And I think from a safety perspective, and I think from just seeing this space, I think it would benefit from having some type of a security way to allow for egress,
Mhm.
but you know,
I personally would like to steer clear of the egress and the neighbor, similar to what the red I just put on the screen, which I appreciate the comment. I think that makes sense, because then that steers clear of egress. I don't have to worry about the hardware, some kind of crash hardware coming out, but then it could be secure for the residents without having a neighbor behind that security line. That's a great comment. Thank you.
I really like the main entrance to the building, the way you've set it in from the sidewalk and kind of the creative way of dealing with that difference in grade, the idea of that being both a planter and a little stoop that people can sit on. I wonder about the materiality of it. It looks like you're carrying that same fiber cement panel onto the face of the planter and down to the ground all around that entry. Are you confident that's going to have the durability to withstand getting kicked if it's a face of a bench?
No. Not 100% confident in that, Tim. I think, we tend to kind of show an idealized state of the color being the negative, but I do think there has to be a transition between panelized material and something to maintain the water that's kind of running down the sidewalk. So there'll be more of a detail than what we're showing for sure. Now, how we maintain the integrity of let's say the intent, we'll have to do it carefully. I don't know if it becomes maybe a colored concrete. Maybe it could do
Yeah.
the same intent versus concrete panel. Maybe that's a way of solving it. Although the saturation is not the same, it may still read the same.
Mhm.
But that's something we need to, when we get into the details. I think we'd like to maintain, let's say, this intent, but how do we do it? We've got to do a little bit of thinking on exactly how to achieve it.
I think that makes sense. And I think as you get into the detailing the building and start to look at how the building is meeting the ground all the way around its perimeter, and maybe that introduction of another material that's specific to how the building meets the ground helps resolving some of those conditions, but still keeps the simplicity of your overall palette above grade. Yes, exactly.
so is the green component, so I'm sorry, I missed that. Is the green component supposed to be a cementitious panel?
Yeah, it'd be like a Swiss Pearl product, kind of a through color cementitious panel.
If I'm not mistaken, just I think be careful on to what I think Tim is saying. I don't know if you can bring Swiss Pearl to the ground.
Say that one more time.
Can't hear
I
you.
do not. I don't think you can bring Swiss Pearl to the ground.
No, it has to,
Yeah.
it can't touch the ground. There will be 3-4 inches. I could try to push them to 2, but there will be, you're right, there will be a detail.
Right. Good luck with the 2. So yeah, I suggest that you look at that and how that, I mean, I think if there's something elegant about the material just turning and hitting it like that, but I think that you should be a little bit truer to the material, and if it's not going to be able to hit the ground, let's show what is it that it's hitting to and what is it that's stopping it.
Mhm.
That's just gonna inform your facade that Tim really likes.
Yeah,
If there's some return, maybe like the paper material on
Yeah.
a cold end of it.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Okay.
Just thinking of the votes we have to take tonight, I'd be comfortable recommending option 3, the architect's preferred option.
Do you want to make a motion, Tim?
Any discussion, or should we go ahead and vote?
I had one last question, since it's right there in front of us. Where the number 3 is that balcony as well? Yes. Is that the Swiss pearl cementitious panel as well,
that's correct. Yeah.
technically? Okay. Okay, I'm ready for a vote as well.
Who, motion to recommend option 3 as the preferred facade option.
I second that motion, option 3.
Great. So the motion on the table is to approve option 3, and seconded by Frank Valdez. Does this require a roll call as well?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So Andrew Arba,
Yes.
Tim Talon,
Yes.
Frank Valdez.
Yes.
Yes. So the motion to approve option 3 is approved. And then so that is the massing and the facade. The other things that we also need to vote on include design guidelines. So whether this meets design guidelines, and if there are additional design guidance that we need to discuss and approve on.
I think that there were certain conditions or components that were brought in by some of the discussions, the gates, the structure, really how that impacts the flooring of the first floor, and the thickness of where the windows of the balcony are, and I think how the material hits the ground.
And would you like to table those votes for another meeting, or Frank, or do you want to vote on them in this meeting?
I would ask my colleagues if we want to put those as conditions.
Didn't quite hear that, Frank.
I was wondering if we want to put those as conditions, or do we want to see the project come back to us?
I'm comfortable with letting it move through.
Yeah, I typically, I think most projects come through us in 2 meetings, but I think in this case, I'd be comfortable letting it move through and just providing design guidance. I do think some of these things we talked about, materiality, how it meets the ground, that stuff does want to be resolved for when this gets to the planning board.
Great. But we can make sure that they're carried as conditions, so that we make sure that they're being considered, as well as the location of the transformer.
Just one other thing before we vote, you mentioned the green roof ordinance. I think our understanding is that, my understanding is that it would apply to this building in the MR3 zone. So glad to hear that you're excited about that too.
Okay.
So would anyone from the committee like to make a motion? And so this one would be to that one, it meets design guidelines, and then we would do another motion to approve each of the criteria on the condition. So the first motion on, does that make sense?
I'll make a motion that the design guidelines have been satisfied.
And is there a second?
Seconded.
Great. And so the motion on the table is that the design guidelines are satisfied by the design shown before us. And we will now move to a roll call vote. So that is Andrew Arba,
Yes.
Tim Talon,
Yes.
Frank Valdez.
Yes.
Right, this motion is approved. And then the next would be that we approve the conditions as per our discussion to include transformer locations, gate, materiality of the building, the structure of the flooring and thickness of the balcony, as well as the material and how it meets the ground. Do I hear a motion?
So motioned.
Right, and a second? Oh, great. Second from Frank Valdez. So I will move to a vote as well for the additional design conditions. Andrew Arba,
Yes.
Tim Talon,
Yes.
Frank Valdez.
Yes.
Great, motion approved.
Thank you. Can you just repeat those? You said them really quickly. I want to make sure.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, of course. So the motion that was just approved was that the prior to going to the planning board, the design guidelines including or design conditions including the transformer location, the addition of a gate, materiality, structure and flooring, which includes the thickness of the balcony that we're seeing on the screen, and then the way that the material is hitting the ground would be resolved.
I actually got all those. All right, great. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate you taking the time and resolving it this evening.
Thank you.
so
Thank you all.
much.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Great. Madison, was there anything
Yeah.
else on the agenda?
That should be everything. You can make a motion to, you can ask if anyone wants to make a
Yes.
motion to end the meeting.
Does anyone want to make a motion? Yep. Is that Andrew? Second?
Second.
Second from Frank. And so there being no further business to come before the council, this meeting is adjourned, or committee. This meeting is adjourned. Oh, Louisa.
I just want to ask Madison to
Mhm.
and Estella to stay on after.
Great.
Yeah. Okay, no problem.
Thank you, everyone.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
And everyone. All right, let me stop recording this meeting real quick.